Here we are in an area just in front of the Pocahontas Monument where we found two very large features. One is the cellar that almost certainly dates to the James Fort period, so for somewhere from 1607 to the mid-1620s. And the other is a bowl-shaped feature that appears to be cutting the cellar. And the bowl-shaped feature dates a little later on. It's filled with heavy brick and mortar rubble relating to the destruction of a building from somewhere nearby. The most likely candidate would be the last brick church that stood here at Jamestown until about 1750. So anyway, we're finding a lot of very curious bricks in this rubble, and it just so happens that while we're working on the layer of brick and mortar rubble, nearby we have Ray Canetti working with Colonial Williamsburg, and he is an expert mason. He's up here on the church tower behind me. Let's see if we can get him down to have a look at some of these bricks. Hey Ray, hey, any chance you can come down and take a look at some of these bricks we're finding?
Yeah, give me a couple of minutes.
Okay, see you in a second. Thanks. Oh, hey, all right. Hey, thanks for coming down. Appreciate you coming down.
Anytime.
So let's take a look at these bricks.
Okay. Well, you can look at this brick and you can clearly tell that they're working the wet clay after the brick's been molded. And what they're doing is they're making the brick, probably letting it set for several days, and then they're coming back and either with a piece of wood or a wire, they're scraping off the green clay. And that's the way that they're making the shape. You can see where they've scribed a line here in the green clay to guide them as they're raking off the green clay. This brick is molded. It's a mullion. The mullion bricks are a decorative feature in Gothic architecture, and they're actually used as separations for the glass panes that are put in the building. You know, it's interesting, that clay and this clay look the same. So it looks like, I really feel that, you know, this shape, which again, it's very clear that they're working the green clay to make it, has a specific place that it's going. But again, I really love seeing these things because it shows such this purpose. You know, they know what, they have a design, they know what they want, they know what they're making. Again, this one's very unusual. I mean, it's very unlike the bricks that they're making for the cap of the wall that's going around the cemetery. It's much bigger. And again, those are much more typical, whereas this is quite unusual to find one this size, because it's really just capping off a one brick wall. And to me, you know, an ideal place I would see that a brick like this could have been used would be on the gable ends and those crow steps that terminate just above the roof line on the building. Yeah, I think it's very clear that these decorative pieces here relate to an earlier building. It probably relates to the earlier church. Yeah, this one's very interesting because most of these heavier pavers or tiles that I find, they don't bevel the edge. They're typically just made square like a normal brick, whereas these, they've actually beveled the side. Interestingly, they're also not firing them the same way that these are fired. And on these, you can actually see these little marks here. And what they did was when they fired this tile, they had a little peg there, a wooden peg, that separated the tiles during the firing to make sure that they would get enough heat to make a good tile. but clearly they're not doing, they don't have the same concern when they fire a tile this size, and it's probably because they can stack it more like they would a brick.
Okay, so some of the other masons that were working on phase 2 of the church tower restoration have also had a chance to look at these bricks in addition to Ray, and including Bill Neff with Colonial Williamsburg. And what they're all kind of saying the same thing. There is a strong likelihood that these bricks come from the last brick church that stood at Jamestown, again until around 1750. But we're going to know more as we find more material, as we clean up the rubble in the lab, and as we have more experts in the field examine the bricks. So, jury is still out. What we were hearing today from myself and from Ray, pretty much just working theories.